Welcome to another edition of the Paranormal Zone. I'm your co-host, Tom Spitalere. Bob is out tonight, and so is Melissa. But I have some exciting news coming up. We're getting ready for a very busy season, and just breaking, I know this is late, so I don't know if anybody's going to hear it, but next Saturday, March 21st, we will be at the Danville Library in Danville, New Hampshire, just outside the Sandown Triangle, talking about aliens. So if you can make it, we'd like to see you there. That's the Danville Public Library, 1 o'clock. Sorry, not Danville. It's for the Danville Public Library. I believe it's down the community center at 1 p.m. But it's out on their site, so check that out. We will be there. Tonight is going to be a very interesting night. The Paranormal Zone was set up so people and individuals and groups could come on and discuss how they believe and what they believe in the paranormal, in the psychic world, and the UFO world. And we've had some great guests all across the world on, from England to Colorado to wherever we go. We're there. But tonight, I wasn't sure what we're going to do tonight because things have been a little hectic. We've been very busy planning our upcoming event season, where we've already have a lot of events scheduled right now. We probably have close to 52. So somewhere about 70 events plus planned for this year already. So we're extremely busy. We've had a very extremely busy winter. But I'm on my way into the studio tonight, and I get a call from a friend of mine. I'm like, wow, I haven't heard from this gentleman in a while. So he calls me up. Tom, I got news for you. Ooh, news? I love news. There's been sightings of UAPs and Bigfoot in the Ossipee Triangle. So not knowing what I was going to do tonight we're going to revisit the Ossipee Triangle and maybe even a few of the other triangles. But the Ossipee Triangle, for some people, believe it's Ossipee, Effingham, Madison, Sandwich, and Tamworth, and Freedom. Very interesting communities, okay? It's often compared to the Bridgewater Triangle, but the reality of it is, if you look at Lauren Coleman's 1978 Mysterious America, you'll see that the Ossipee Triangle goes from Salem, New Hampshire, to Jefferson, New Hampshire, back down towards the seacoast of Rochester, and then Rochester back to Salem. So it's a very interesting area. It's an old area. Geologically, it's called the Strange Place. It's actually the ancient site of a volcanic ring. The Ossipee Mountain Circular remains a 125-year-old stratovolcano, which some believers suggest creates unique energy or a window that facilitates paranormal activity. The hiking trails are interested. We've had many sightings turned into us of Bigfoots. UFO sightings all over the place. There's some interesting stone structures too, and a lot of occult activity, especially some figures like Aleister Crowley was in that area. The Ossipee Triangle is just a map coordinate. It's a coordinate, a window area, a veil between the worlds, especially when it's thin. From the paranormal research perspective, the region's primary laboratory is study of geological anomalies like the 125-million-year-old volcanic ring might act like a natural battery for supernatural and UFO activity. Hairy hominoids or Bigfoot, Sasquatch. Ossipee Mountains are verified hotspots for Sasquatch sightings. Credible reports often cluster near Corner Pond, attracting investigators from the BFRO. Been out there, but they've been also seen crossing in Freedom, New Hampshire. They've also been seen in Ossipee, New Hampshire. There's been plenty of sightings. We have a location we need to get to, but I keep getting phone calls. Some people have heard some whoops in that area, wood knocks in that area, and that's in the Whittier region of the Ossipee area of Route 16. So that's an area that we're looking to get into once the weather warms up. Mysterious cats, phantom mountain lions, large unidentified felines also exist in this area. There actually was a sighting of a dingwall in this area too. A dingwall. Folklore, a feline cryptid, large cut-like creature with short legs, tufted ears, and wolf-like appearances. There's two different versions: the U.S. Maine, New Hampshire, and the one that's out in California. It's about the size of a mountain lion, inquisitive and harmless, unknown. Forests and mountains are their habitat. Sightings have been sighted all over the area of the White Mountains and the Lower Ossipee Triangle. And it's also kind of looks like a bobcat, but some people say it might be a bobcat, but it isn't. A dingwall described as being a cat-like creature, long, slim body, covered in wolf-like fur, round head, which feline is operative with tufted ears, very long tail that's described being twice as long as the dingwall's body. The dingwall also looking like a cat with a wolf-like pelt, short legs, and sharp teeth. It's also been seen in the Mount Adams, Mount Jefferson, and the Presidential Ranges, and at Dingwall Rock. This cat-like creature has been seen spreading out on the rock in the east, and it looks something like the California one, except the northern Dingwall is bigger, furrier, and the existence of the species dread, fear, and horrendous wail that can be heard for miles echoing through the valley. It's also been located off the Castle Trail, and it's also got a ball at the end of its tail, which you probably wouldn't want to get hit with. So that's one of the big things that have been seen in the Ossipee Triangle. Not too far from, we're actually right on Route 16 and 28. There's rumors, I've heard it driving home late at night years ago. I used that road a lot for many years. You'd actually hear a horse. It's an old legend of a guy who was killed as horse rustlers were trying to steal his horse. So he's been seen and the horse has been seen. Also, we'll get back to this too, but in the area of the Ossipee Triangle, and like I said, that's pretty big. Mysterious lights have been seen in the skies, especially over let me see where this is, Danhole Pond. It's in Carroll County, New Hampshire, and it covers the towns of Ossipee. So at Danhole Pond, the region's known as the Ossipee Triangle is lured beyond volcanic origins, including reports of mysterious lights at the pond. I know about where this pond is. I've been to this pond. It's also rumors persist that the infamous occults also visited this area, Aleister Crowley. This pond is known for its exceptional clear water, remote, peaceful atmosphere, adding to its mysterious desolation. It's a 443 acre body of water, so it's pretty big. So Danhole Pond, Ossipee Pond, there's been some seen. I will tell you, I've actually seen at a secret location that I refuse to give out. I've actually seen a location where I read this in a book and then found the location where there's been Native American drawings of stuff going in, like flying in and out of Ossipee Lake. So that's pretty cool. So, I mean, that's another one of those big things that go on, the mysterious lights. There's an energy vortex. Many researchers believe there's a rare structure of a ring-like crates of magnetic energetic vortex. This may explain why the region has been a magnet for UFOs since, actually, before the 1960s. I read reports of 1960, but I've gotten reports from Native American friends that they've been hearing stories for generations about the Ossipee Triangle, the pond, and that. So I'll give you a couple examples of the Ossipee Triangle. One night I was driving home from a ride up north. Now, when I get a chance, I'm now extremely busy, so my options are not as busy as they used to be. But I would take long day trips, go find a road somewhere and go for a ride. And one of those rides one day took me up past, I went into, we did one of these long trips. We went up Route 10, crossed over the mountain range to Route 16, and came down Route 16 and headed home. Home meaning Massachusetts. So I got into like the Pittsfield area, Pittsburgh area up there, crossed over the mountains into Berlin, and then came down from Berlin through the mountain range around Dead Man's Curve and was coming down. I was at that time near where Storyland is, and we're looking ahead. It's probably about 8 o'clock at night, meaning, this is going to be a 2 in the morning trip, which is fine. Drove down where 302 and 16 meet. So you're coming down from Storyland, you're heading to the light. Across the light, there's a gas station. You take a left, you're on 16. You take a right, you're on 302. I see this weird light fly right over the gas station, nice and slow. Talked about this before. Kind of hovered there for a little bit, and then zoom, gone. Interesting. That was the first time. Coming down Route 16, another time I was further south near the Rochester area, so south of Ossipee, and I could see these lights over my car. Again, 9 o'clock at night. Another time closer to Ossipee, probably closer to Chicora though, so that end of Ossipee. Couple of us are driving back, and I'm just enjoying it. It's probably about, if I remember correctly, 7:30 at night, but it was darker out. It wasn't like, it was probably early spring. And this thing just flew right over my car and it was gone. So that's been some of my excitement in that area for UFOs and creepy stuff. So Also on Ossipee Lake, there's the classic benign haunting involving a spirit of Florence Small, who 1916 murder is one of the area's most infamous, I should say, cold cases. So that's another interesting location there. I'm just looking, I'm cross-referencing something out of my files. Here it is. I knew I had something in my files about this. The story of Florence Small. September 28th, 1916. Her husband, Frederick Small, lived in a remote cottage, named Fellsmere on the shores of Ossipee Lake. Frederick was a former stockbroker with a history of domestic violence and abuse and controlling. On the afternoon of the murder, Frederick said he left for a business trip to Boston. Now you gotta remember something. Business trip to Boston's a long ride. Ossipee, from where I live in Essex County, I'm 30 minutes north of Boston by 93, and probably an hour and a half to Ossipee by car, and that's using highways. So it's quite interesting. Frederick left for a business trip. He made a show of shouting goodbye to Florence and left with the local coachman, ensuring witnesses saw him leaving her alive. Around midnight, the cottage erupted, a massive fire that burned it to the waterline. Frederick received the news in Boston and returned home appearing to be inconsolable widow. So he seemed like he was sad, according to the stuff that I've read on this one. Investigators found Florence's remains in a flooded basement. Because she had fallen through the floor into the lake water, her head and torso were partially preserved. Medical examiners believed she had been strangled with a cord, shot in the head, and beaten before the fire ever started. Wow. Investigators discovered Frederick was a tinker who rigged a time incendiary device using an alarm clock, spark plugs, to start the fire hours after he left for Boston. He also recently took out a $20,000 life insurance policy. And that was in, like I said, 1918. Frederick Small was convicted and eventually hung. The haunting of Ossipee Lake tied to the new cottage built directly on the original stone foundation of the burnt home. Unsetting precedent. The owners have read this somewhere, I think at two different locations. The owners had reported unearthly chill, dark energy, and a feeling of being watched. Benign haunting author Janice Petrie, who researched this case in her book, The Perfection to Fault, suggests the ghost Florence herself, described as benign presence, only appears to a few people who are around. In 2007, 91st anniversary death community finally gave Florence a proper ceremony at Mcdermott Cemetery in honor of memory. I didn't go to that one. I was planning on it. I just never made it because I find this stuff very fascinating. I've always found stuff like that very fascinating. Talked about the Bigfoot, talked about the UFO sightings. And then, of course, we have interesting stone sightings. I mean, if you ever want to check out the Florence Smalls, she's buried at Grant Hill Cemetery in Center Ossipee. The murder site, the Fellsmore, the two-story original car named Fellsmore, was located on the shores where the exact address is often kept private to protect the owners. It was built on the stone foundation, still exists today. A newer structure situated in a remote area once known by the name Mountain View. Frederick Small was executed in New Hampshire State Prison, and the First Church of Ossipee is where Florence's funeral services were held after the discovery of her remains. So if you want to go check that area out, you're more than welcome to it. Grant Hill Cemetery is quite an interesting location. Just so you know. There's anomalous stone structures, the presence of an unknown stone altar sites like the giant tumulus in Melvin Village, long point to human interaction with the triangle's unique priorities. So this is quite the creepy area, to be honest with you folks. I'm just pulling up some more files on this. So also too in this area, Connor Pond, hotspot for Bigfoot sightings. Area of the pond is dense, rugged terrain with the volcanic ring, which believers believe is the perfect habitat for undescribed hominids. Dan Hole's Pond, site with unexplained lights and phenomena still existing today. And the Geechee Gumney Campground in the 60s and 70s described as the monster of Gitche Kumi, residing in the Ossipee Mountains, with physical descriptions figuratively to a Sasquatch. Grant Hill Cemetery in Ossipee, they've gotten, I've been in there and did some EVP work and gotten some great EVPs. Mount View ghost town sites scattered throughout the mountain range of cellar holes. Check those out if you ever get a chance. And Melvin Village, the ancient burial mound, is an unusual structure. It's long been subject of studying the triangle's ancient history and the potential of the occult. Chicora Lake, just north of where Chief Chicora, who supposedly cursed the land, was killed. So what happened was Chicora, the chief, left this kid with a settler. The two kids got into a fight. The kid died. And then Chief Chicora went on to go after him. So that's always, I have been in that area. So what happened was, on Mount Chicora in the early 1700s, Chief Chicora left his son with the care of the settler Cornelius Campbell. The boy accidentally drank poison intended for foxes and died. And of course, that didn't make the chief happy, like anybody else who lost their sons. Seeking vengeance, Chicora killed the Campbell family. Campbell pursued him to the summit, the top of Mount Chicora. And at that time, he cornered Chicora. Chicora leaped to his death after casting a dying curse on the white settlers. May the Great Spirit curse ye, lightning blast your crops, wind and fire destroy your dwellings. Evil spirits breathe death upon your cattle. And for years there was poor harvest, dying livestock, and it was scientists attribute the cattle deaths to mineral contaminated soil. So it's quite interesting. Melvin Village, this is real interesting. I've been there. A local legend persists the discovery of a massive skeleton So in 1817, a skeleton measuring nearly 7 feet tall was reportedly found buried in the sand near the mouth of the Melvin River. The mark, a New Hampshire Historical Highway marker tile engraved by the lake, commemorates the site. Literally, it's an made famous by John Greenleaf Whittier, the grave by the lake, which muses identity to the giant warrior buried there. Whittier was probably one of the first known, I wouldn't say ghost hunter, but definitely wrote about New England folklore and legends. It's one of the earliest writers I can find. In fact, there's a part of Ossipee on Route 16 that's got the Whittier Motel, the Whittier Ski Tow, the Whittier Post Office, the Whittier train station, the Whittier restaurant, which is torn down, and there was a water park named after him, and the Whittier Covered Bridge, which they repaired by about 20 years ago. So it's quite interesting when you look at what Whittier had done in this area, what he's written about. And in the 1960s, there was also the monster Geechee Kumi, the Ossipee Sasquatch. So it was spotted in the early the Gilman, off of Gilman Valley Road, near, heading west up Bald Mountain on the Tamworth Ossipee line. Back then in '79, there was a sighting of this creature, which they call that, but it's believed to be a Bigfoot. So that was the first sighting. There's been other sightings in the early 2000s. Very interesting. Now, you have to wonder why this area is a magnet for UFOs. Now, we all know that the Ossipee Triangle, as I've said earlier, is a volcanic anomaly. I mean, it's very well written. Very well talked about. But what's not talked about is why. All these triangles, the Bermuda Triangle, the Pacific Ring of Fire, and other angles that were coined by Lauren Coleman, have a lot of things in common with them. There's water. There's always a military base around these UAP, UFO sightings, no matter where it is. The Ossipee Triangle goes from Salem to Jefferson. Manchester Airport used to be a military helicopter base, so that's interesting. Also, too, they've been sighted, like I said early on, flying in and out of the lakes of Ossipee. Now, why is that? Well, if you take Ossipee and you go, okay, it's a volcanic structure, the mountains. And that's why the mountains are hard to climb. They're not big, the Ossipee Mountains. There have been sightings of Bigfoot all over them. But their angle is more straight up than Mount Washington. It's more on an angle climbing until you get near, midway up to the top, then it goes straight up, and then it's some work. But the Ossipee Mountains are like ledges, just straight up for the most part. So it's interesting to see how these creatures get around them. It's hard to get anyone near in that area because of that fact. I mean, you just can't move. So what So why would, let's get back to the UFOs and we'll talk about why I'm skeptical, but not skeptical about where Bigfoot goes up there. But let's get back to that. So they've been seen coming out of the waters of Ossipee Lake. Okay. Well, we find out this was a volcanic ring of fire at one time. It shaped the whole area of the mountains and even northern Massachusetts. You read The Land Before Time by John Kuno, I think it was called, Blue Book. It's interesting history, geological history of the area that we're talking about. It was very interesting. I own the book, and I've read it a couple times. So, do the volcanic ash keep these vehicles going? Is there something about the water that powers these vehicles? So what powers these weird lights, UFOs or UAPs coming out of the ground? Is it the water? Is it that they can go deep into the ash and come up where the lava pools are? We don't know what powers these UAPs or UFOs. So, and knowing that, all the Ossipee Triangle, the Bridgewater Triangle, all have swamps, natural gases, and water. Same with the Ossipee Triangle, same with the Bennington Triangle. So, what is it? Why are they always in these key locations? And by the way, we weren't that far from the incident in Exeter in 1965 that was made famous. There's also a volcanic ring, an energy force, or a vortex in this area too. Our rare minerals creates a stargate or a portal, and it's a magnet for, like I said, for UFO high concentration of sighting, especially chevron-shaped sightings. I'm seeing a few of those, but the ones I mostly see are the round shape, sometimes the triangular shape. And all over this area, there's been Sasquatch sightings. All right, and this is what I was looking for over here. There's a small 6-acre pond near the Ossipee Lakes. Locals say it's weird, and it is weird. I mean, there's been more strange occurrences than I can even think of. Snake Lake, commonly known as Mystery Pond, sometimes Snake Pond, near Ossipee, is a small 6-acre body of water. I've been there. Most famous event was that occurred there in 1941 when a sportsman named Edon Wood used a glass bottom's boat to catch 27 trout from the pond. The fish were immediately flown to Washington, D.C. as a personal gift to FDR. The pond earned its mysterious moniker because despite the smaller surface areas, it's reputed exceptionally deep, historically cited at 75 feet, and the ability to produce high quality of fish. The weird aura being unsettling, some locals suggesting it's connected to the same underground energy as the nearby volcanic ring. Snake sightings. Snake Pond comes from a high concentration of northern water snakes often seen there. While these snakes are non-venomous, they can be aggressive if cornered, and it's contributed to making the pond real creepy. Also, too, you feel like you're being watched. Would you like to, so you almost feel like you're being watched on Snake Lake, and that's where some of the caves have been reportedly located too, on Snake Lake. So it makes it really an interesting, creepy location. And that is located on the road to North Wakesville, right near the Pine State Forest, on the way to Chickville. So it's not that far from the Maine New Hampshire border either. So if you ever want to go check it out, I would. I've checked it out. I love going up to that area. Some of my favorite haunts are in that area. So, what I find interesting though, it's got some high peaks, including Mount Shar and Black Snout. There's been some sightings of Bigfoot on those peaks. They're very high up, and they're very hard to climb because you're going more straight up the mountainside than you are anything else. So, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I have to wonder if these things aren't interdimensional and they can move around in portals or portholes. To get from one location to another, because it's quite an interesting, you'll see them, you get reports of them, but you never hear them screaming if they fall off the mountain. You're around the corner and there's nothing left of the mountain, you're going to end up falling down. And like anything else that falls from a high structure, you're going to scream before, obviously coming to an untimely demise. So it's interesting. No one's ever heard them scream, so I have to believe that these creatures are actually interdimensional. And that area is the tip of the mountains, the Pine Barrens. There's also areas in the Ossipee Triangle, like some of the other triangles, you lose your phone, had that happen. Where compasses spin weirdly, I had that happen. And people lose sense of direction. If you're walking out in the woods, it's easy to lose sense of direction. I've never had that happen, but I've had those other things happen in the woods of the Ossipee Triangle. It's quite interesting that it did happen. So that's another thing to look out for while you're tracking through the Ossipee Triangle. We're just looking up something real quick here. With that though, as that was very interesting time tonight. And like I said, you don't know what you're going to find. So if you're driving up in the White Mountains coming up soon, anywhere from Salem, up 93, Route 16, any of those small routes along Lake Winnipesaukee, Ossipee Lake, keep an eye out, keep an eye in the woods, because you never know what you're going to find, especially in the Ossipee Triangle. If there's anybody who wants to send any reports to us privately, you can do that through paranormalnh.org or thomas.spitalere@yahoo.org. Send them over. I'm keeping a track of all these. I have information on the Ossipee Triangle, and it keeps growing every day. I want everybody to keep an eye in the sky, an eye in the woods, an eye on the road. I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. This is the Paranormal Zone. I'm Tom Spitalere, your co-host. Have a good night, and we'll be back next time. I'm heading back to the crypt. Good night, everybody.